2 months after what I thought was the perfect wedding, I was standing in our kitchen making coffee when the doorbell rang. Through the peephole, I saw Chloe McKinney, my maid of honor, shifting nervously on our doorstep. Her usually perfect blonde hair was pulled back in a messy ponytail, and she kept glancing over her shoulder like someone was following her. "Chloe, what's wrong?" I asked, opening the door. She looked like she hadn't slept in days. "Cressida, we need to talk. Is Elliot home?" My husband emerged from the bedroom, still in his airline uniform from his shift at the airport. "Hey, Chloe, everything okay?" She walked past us into the living room, clutching a manila envelope against her chest. "Actually, I need to talk to both of you about the Bachelorette party." My blood turned to ice. Elliot raised an eyebrow and sat down on our grey sectional sofa. I remained standing, my hands trembling slightly as I set down my coffee mug. "What about it?" I asked, forcing a laugh. "We had a great time at the resort, remember? Just girls being girls." Chloe's eyes filled with tears. "Cressida, I can't keep lying about this. I've been having panic attacks for weeks. My therapist says I need to tell the truth." "The truth about what?" Elliot's voice was calm, but I knew that tone. It was the same one he used when questioning suspicious passengers at the airport. His background as a customs fraud investigator had taught him to stay composed when people were hiding something. Chloe opened the envelope and pulled out hotel receipts, photographs, and what looked like a list of names. About the two guys from the resort, about what really happened that night. The room went completely silent, except for the hum of our refrigerator. I felt like I was falling through the floor. "Chloe, you're scaring me," I said, trying to keep my voice light. "What guys? We were all together the whole time." "No, we weren't." She spread the receipts across our coffee table. "You disappeared around 11 p.m. on Saturday night, with Mason Prince and his friend Jake. You didn't come back to your room until almost 4 in the morning." Elliot leaned forward, studying the papers. His expression hadn't changed, but I could see the muscles in his jaw tighten. "These are room service charges. For 3 people, champagne, strawberries, chocolate-covered fruit, charged to room 347. "That was Cressida's room," Chloe whispered. I laughed, but it sounded forced even to my own ears. "This is ridiculous. So what if I ordered room service? We were celebrating." At 2 in the morning, Elliot picked up one of the receipts. "This shows delivery at 2:17 a.m. for 3 people. Chloe pulled out her phone and showed us a photo. It was from the resort's poolside bar, and there I was, laughing and touching the arm of a tall, dark-haired man I barely remembered. Another man stood behind us, his hand resting on my lower back. "You told us you were going to bed early because you had a headache," Chloe said. "But Sarah saw you leaving the bar with them, and Melissa heard you in the hallway at 3 a.m., giggling and shushing them." My heart was pounding so hard I thought it might burst. "Okay, fine. Maybe I had a few drinks with some guys. So what? It was my bachelorette party. I was allowed to have fun." "Fun?" Elliot's voice was deadly quiet. "What kind of fun exactly?" I looked at my husband of 2 months, the man I'd promised to love and honor just 8 weeks ago. His dark eyes were studying me like I was a suspicious package that needed to be searched. "Nothing happened," I said quickly. "We just talked and laughed. It was completely innocent." Chloe shook her head. "Cressida, please stop. I was there when you came back to your room. Your dress was wrinkled, your makeup was smeared, and you made us all promise never to tell Elliot about any of it." "That's not—" "You gave me $500 in cash," Chloe continued, her voice getting stronger. "You said it was to make sure everyone kept quiet about your last night of freedom. You made us delete all the photos from that night." Elliot stood up slowly. At 6'2", he towered over both of us. "Is that true, Cressida?" I felt trapped, like a wild animal backed into a corner. "It wasn't what you think. We just kissed a little bit. Everyone does crazy things at bachelor and bachelorette parties. It's like a tradition." The words hung in the air like poison gas. Elliot stared at me for a long moment, then walked to the window overlooking our apartment complex's parking lot. Kissed? He repeated flatly. That's all. I swear on my mother's life, that's all that happened. Chloe was crying now. Cressida, please don't make me say it. Say what? Elliot turned back to face us. Nothing, I practically shouted. There's nothing else to say. But Chloe was already reaching into the envelope again. She pulled out what looked like a hotel keycard receipt. The front desk gave me this when I asked about the charges on our group bill. It shows every time someone used a keycard to enter room 347 that night. Elliot took the paper from her hands. His face went completely white as he read it. 3 separate entries, he said quietly. 11:47 p.m., 12:23 a.m., and 2:45 a.m. The last person to leave was at 3:52 a.m. I felt like I was going to throw up. Those records could be wrong. Hotel systems make mistakes all the time. I used to investigate customs fraud, Cressida. I know how to read transaction logs. Elliot set the paper down carefully. This shows 3 people entering your room at different times throughout the night. The final exit wasn't until almost 4 a.m. So what? I was getting desperate now. Maybe they helped me back to my room because I was drunk. Maybe they made sure I was okay before they left. Both of them? Elliot's voice was getting colder. For 4 hours. Chloe pulled out her phone again. There's more. I recorded some of what you told us the next morning, when you were bragging about your last free night before the wedding. My legs gave out and I collapsed onto the sofa. You recorded me. I thought it was funny at the time, Chloe said miserably. I thought you were just being wild, and it would be a good story later. But then I realized what it really meant. Elliot held out his hand. Let me hear it. No, I said quickly. Chloe, you don't have to... But she was already pressing play. My own voice filled the room, slightly slurred from the previous night's drinking. Oh my God, you guys, I can't believe I did that. Mason was so hot and Jake was so sweet. I feel terrible but also kind of amazing. Like, this is it, you know? After Saturday, I'll be a married woman forever. I had to get it out of my system. Then Sarah's voice. Did you really sleep with both of them? And my response, clear as day. A lady never tells. But let's just say the honeymoon suite has some serious competition. Promise me you'll never tell Elliot. He would literally die. Elliot walked to the kitchen and leaned against the counter, his back to us. The silence stretched on for what felt like hours. Finally, he spoke. Get out. Elliot, please. Not you. He turned to face Chloe. Thank you for telling me, but I need you to leave now so I can talk to my wife. Chloe gathered up her papers and stuffed them back into the envelope. I'm sorry, Cressida. I really am. But I couldn't live with keeping this secret. After she left, Elliot and I stared at each other across our living room. The apartment we'd decorated together, the home we'd planned to fill with children and laughter and decades of marriage. It didn't mean anything, I whispered. You slept with 2 men 3 days before our wedding. It was a mistake. I was drunk and scared about getting married, and I made a stupid mistake. Elliot sat down across from me, his hands folded in his lap. You made a choice. Then you made another choice to lie about it. Then you made another choice to pay your friends to cover it up. I was protecting you. I didn't want to hurt you. You were protecting yourself. His voice was completely calm now, which somehow made it worse than if he'd been screaming. And you would have kept protecting yourself forever if Chloe hadn't grown a conscience. I started crying. What can I do? How can I fix this? Elliot stood up and walked toward our bedroom. I'm going to stay at my parents' house tonight. We'll talk tomorrow when I've had time to think. Elliot, wait. He paused in the doorway. Did you use protection? The question hit me like a physical blow. What? With Mason and Jake, did you use protection? I couldn't meet his eyes. I think so. I was really drunk. You think so? He nodded slowly. I'll need to get tested, and so will you. After he left, I sat alone in our apartment, surrounded by wedding photos and honeymoon souvenirs. I kept telling myself it would be okay. Couples survived infidelity all the time. We could go to counseling. I could make it up to him. I had no idea that Elliot wasn't planning to forgive me. He was planning to destroy me. The next morning, I woke up alone in our king-size bed, still wearing yesterday's clothes. Elliot's side was perfectly made, like he'd never been there at all. I checked my phone obsessively, but there were no messages from him. I called in sick to work and spent the day cleaning our apartment, as if scrubbing the baseboards would somehow scrub away what I'd done. Around noon, I texted Chloe. "We need to talk. Can you come over?" She responded an hour later. "I think I've said enough. Please, I need to know exactly what you told him." "I told him the truth, Cressida, something you should have done 2 months ago." I stared at my phone, feeling a surge of anger. Chloe had been my best friend since college. We'd been roommates, bridesmaids in each other's weddings, vacation buddies for years. How could she betray me like this? "You destroyed my marriage," I typed. "You destroyed your marriage. I just stopped lying about it." That afternoon, I drove to Chloe's apartment complex and waited in the parking lot until she came home from work. When she saw me getting out of my car, she actually looked scared. "Cressida, I don't want to fight about this." "I'm not here to fight. I just need you to help me fix this." She unlocked her apartment door but didn't invite me in. "There's nothing to fix. You cheated on Elliot. He deserves to know." "It was one night, one stupid night that didn't mean anything." "Then why did you pay us to keep quiet about it?" I didn't have a good answer for that. "Look, I know I made a mistake, but marriages survive this kind of thing all the time. Elliot and I can work through it if everyone just stops making it into such a big deal." Chloe shook her head. "You don't get it. This isn't about the cheating anymore. It's about the lying. You stood in front of 200 people and promised to love and honor him, knowing you'd already betrayed him." "I do love him." "Then you should have told him the truth before the wedding." That night, Elliot finally came home. He walked straight to our bedroom and started packing a suitcase. "Where are you going?" I asked from the doorway. "I'm staying at my parents' house until I figure out what to do next." "What to do about what?" He stopped folding his shirts and looked at me. "About our marriage, Cressida. About whether I want to stay married to someone who can lie to my face for 2 months straight." "I didn't lie to your face. I just didn't tell you something. You promised to love, honor, and cherish me, in front of our families and friends, 3 days after sleeping with 2 other men. It wasn't like that." "What was it like?" His voice was sharp now. "Help me understand. Walk me through your thought process." I sat down on our bed, trying to find the right words. I was scared about getting married, about committing to one person for the rest of my life, and I had too much to drink, and these guys were flirting with me, and it felt like my last chance to feel young and free and desirable. "So you slept with both of them?" "I made a mistake, a horrible, stupid mistake that I regret every day." Elliot zipped up his suitcase. "Do you regret it, or do you regret getting caught?" Before I could answer, his phone buzzed. He glanced at it and his expression hardened. "What is it?" I asked. "Text from an unknown number. Someone named Sarah from your bachelorette party." My heart sank. Sarah was one of the bridesmaids, a friend from work who barely knew Elliot. "What does she want?" Elliot read from his phone. "Hi, Elliot. This is Sarah Martinez from Cressida's bachelorette party. I heard about what happened with Chloe yesterday. I think there are some things you should know that she didn't tell you. Can we talk?" I lunged for his phone. "Don't respond to that." He held it out of my reach. "Why not?" "Because she's just trying to cause drama. Sarah has always been jealous of our relationship. Or she has more information about what you did that weekend." "There is no more information. I told you everything." But even as I said it, I knew it wasn't true. There were details I'd left out, things I'd hoped would stay buried forever. The fact that Mason and Jake were friends who'd planned to share me from the beginning. The fact that I'd given them my real phone number and they'd been texting me for weeks after the wedding. The fact that I'd almost met up with Mason, when he was in town on business last month. Elliot was typing a response to Sarah. "I'll meet you for coffee tomorrow morning." "You can't do that." "Watch me." He walked toward the door with his suitcase. I followed him, desperate. "Elliot, please. I know I messed up, but we can fix this. We can go to counseling. I'll do whatever you want." He stopped at the front door. "What I want is a wife who doesn't sleep with other men. What I want is a wife who doesn't lie to me for months. What I want is a marriage that isn't built on fraud." "Fraud?" "I'm a fraud investigator, Cressida. I know fraud when I see it. You obtain my consent to marry you by concealing material information. In some states, that's grounds for annulment." The word hit me like a slap. Annulment? "I'm going to talk to Sarah tomorrow. Then I'm going to talk to a lawyer. Then I'm going to decide whether I want to stay married to you." After he left, I called my sister Tara in a panic. "He's talking about annulment," I sobbed into the phone. "Jesus, Cressida, what did you do?" I told her everything. The resort, the guys, the cover-up, Chloe's betrayal. When I finished, Tara was quiet for a long moment. "You slept with 2 guys 3 days before your wedding. It didn't mean anything." "Are you insane? Of course it meant something. You cheated on your husband." "He wasn't my husband yet." "You were engaged. You were wearing his ring. You'd already sent out the invitations." I started crying harder. "I need everyone to stop judging me and help me fix this." "How exactly are we supposed to fix this? You can't unfuck those guys." "Tara." "I'm serious. What did you think was going to happen? That you could just pretend it never happened and live happily ever after?" "People make mistakes. This wasn't a mistake. This was a choice. Multiple choices. You chose to go to their room, you chose to sleep with them, you chose to lie about it, and you chose to pay people to cover it up." I hung up on her and called my mother. "Honey, what's wrong?" Mum's voice was warm and concerned. "Elliot found out about something that happened at my bachelorette party. He's really upset." "What kind of something?" I gave her a sanitized version. I'd had too much to drink and kissed some guys at the resort. She made sympathetic noises and told me that men sometimes overreacted to these things. "I'm sure he'll calm down once he has time to think about it," she said. "Marriage is about forgiveness." But I could tell she didn't know the whole story, and I wasn't about to tell her. That night, I lay awake in our empty bed, staring at the ceiling. I kept replaying that weekend at the resort, trying to figure out how everything had gone so wrong. It had started innocently enough. The 8 of us, me, Chloe, Sarah, Melissa, and 4 other friends, had checked into the all-inclusive resort on Friday afternoon. The plan was simple: spa treatments, beach time, drinks by the pool, and dancing at the resort's nightclub. But by Saturday night, I was feeling overwhelmed by the reality of what I was about to do. Marriage, forever. No more flirting with cute guys at bars. No more wondering what if about other men. When Mason and Jake approached our group at the poolside bar, I should have politely declined their invitation to join them for drinks. Instead, I found myself gravitating toward them, laughing at their jokes, letting them buy me shot after shot of expensive tequila. Mason was everything Elliot wasn't: spontaneous, dangerous, unpredictable. Jake was sweet and funny, the kind of guy who made me feel like the most interesting woman in the world. When they suggested we continue the party in my room, I knew exactly what I was agreeing to. I wasn't drunk enough to claim ignorance. I was drunk enough to stop caring about consequences. What happened next was everything I'd thought I was missing by settling down with Elliot. It was wild and passionate and completely selfish. For 4 hours, I wasn't a bride-to-be with responsibilities and commitments. I was just a woman taking what she wanted. The next morning, I'd felt sick with guilt and panic. I'd made the girls promise never to tell anyone, paid Chloe to make sure they kept quiet, and spent the next 2 months pretending it never happened. But now Elliot knew, and soon everyone would know. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Hey, beautiful. Heard through the grapevine that your secret's out. If you need a shoulder to cry on, I'm in town next week. Mason. I stared at the message in horror. How did he know? Who had told him? Then I realized, if Mason knew, other people knew too. The story was spreading. My perfect life was about to become a very public disaster. The next morning, I woke up to 17 missed calls from various family members and friends. My phone had been buzzing all night, but I'd turned it off after Mason's text. The first voicemail was from my mother. Cressida, honey, call me back. Elliot's mother just called me asking some very strange questions about your bachelorette party. The second was from my sister. What the hell is going on? Elliot's dad just called Dad asking about additional expenses from your wedding. Call me back now. The rest were variations of the same theme. Elliot had clearly spent the morning making phone calls. I was still in my pajamas, trying to figure out how to handle the situation, when someone knocked on my door. Through the peephole, I saw a young man in a cheap suit holding an envelope. Cressida Vale? Who's asking? I'm a process server. I have some documents for you. My hand shook as I signed for the envelope. Inside was a subpoena addressed to Paradise Cove Resort, requesting all records related to my stay during the Bachelorette party weekend. There was also a cover letter from an attorney named David Chen. Mrs. Vale, please be advised that my client, Elliot Vale, has retained my services regarding potential fraud in connection with your recent marriage. We are in the process of gathering evidence to support a petition for annulment. Please have your attorney contact my office at your earliest convenience. I sank to the floor right there in my hallway. This was really happening. Elliot wasn't just angry, he was building a legal case against me. I called him immediately, but it went straight to voicemail. I tried 3 more times with the same result. Finally, I drove to his parents' house. Janice Vale answered the door with a look of pure disgust. You have some nerve showing up here. I need to talk to Elliot. This is getting out of hand. Out of hand? Janice's voice was shrill. You slept with 2 men 3 days before marrying my son, and you think this is getting out of hand? Mrs. Vale, please. We spent $38,000 on your wedding, $38,000 to celebrate you marrying our son while you knew you'd betrayed him. Martin Vale appeared behind his wife. Cressida, you need to leave. Now. I just want to talk to him. He doesn't want to talk to you, Martin said, and frankly, neither do we. We trusted you. We welcomed you into our family. And you made fools of all of us. It was one mistake. It was fraud, Janice snapped. You defrauded our entire family. You took our money, our love, our trust, all while hiding what you'd done. The door slammed in my face. I sat in my car in their driveway for 20 minutes, crying and hoping Elliot would come out. He never did. That afternoon, I called in sick to work again and drove to the law offices of Peterson and Associates, the first divorce attorney I found online. Margaret Peterson was a sharp-faced woman in her 50s who listened to my story with increasing skepticism. So, you want to contest an annulment based on fraud? She asked when I finished. I want to save my marriage. By fighting your husband's attempt to legally dissolve it. By making him understand that what I did doesn't have to end everything between us. Peterson leaned back in her leather chair. Mrs. Vale, I have to be honest with you. Based on what you've told me, your husband has a very strong case for annulment. But people cheat all the time. That doesn't make their marriages fraudulent. Cheating after marriage is grounds for divorce. Concealing infidelity that occurred before marriage, especially immediately before marriage, can be grounds for annulment. The legal theory is that you obtained his consent to marry you through fraud or misrepresentation. I felt sick. So what are my options? You can contest the annulment and argue that your indiscretion doesn't rise to the level of fraud. But honestly, with the evidence he's gathering, I don't think you'd win. What evidence? Peterson consulted her notes. Hotel records, witness statements, financial records showing you paid people to keep quiet. It paints a picture of deliberate deception rather than a momentary lapse in judgment. So, I should just give up. I think you should consider whether fighting this is worth the additional humiliation and expense. Annulment proceedings are public record. Do you really want all of this aired in open court? That evening, I finally got a text from Elliot. Meet me at Starbucks on 5th Street tomorrow at 10 a.m. Come alone. I arrived 15 minutes early and ordered us both coffee. His usual medium roast with cream, no sugar. When he walked in, he looked like he hadn't slept in days. His usually neat hair was disheveled, and there were dark circles under his eyes. "Thanks for the coffee," he said, sitting across from me. "Elliot, I'm so sorry. I know I hurt you, but we can work through this." He pulled out a manila folder and set it on the table between us. "I met with Sarah yesterday." My stomach dropped. "What did she tell you?" "That Mason and Jake planned the whole thing. They saw you at the bar Friday night and made a bet about whether they could get you into bed before your wedding." I felt like I was going to throw up. "That's not true." She showed me the text they sent to her friend Rebecca, who was dating Jake at the time. They called you the desperate bride and joked about giving you one last hurrah. "Sarah is lying. I also talked to the resort manager this morning. The subpoena went through. They're sending me copies of all the security footage from that weekend." The room started spinning. "Security footage? Hallway cameras, elevator cameras, pool area cameras. They keep everything for 6 months in case of incidents." I gripped my coffee cup so hard I thought it might shatter. "Elliot, please. I know I made a terrible mistake, but I love you. I've always loved you. You love me so much that you slept with 2 strangers 3 days before our wedding." I was scared. I was having pre-wedding jitters, and I made a stupid, impulsive decision that I regret every single day. "Do you regret it? Or do you regret getting caught?" It was the second time he'd asked me that question, and I still didn't have a good answer. "I regret hurting you," I said finally. "That's not the same thing." He opened the folder and pulled out a stack of papers. "These are the hotel records. Room service charges, bar tabs, spa treatments. You spent over $800 that weekend on things that weren't part of the Bachelorette package." I looked at the itemized list. Champagne and strawberries delivered to my room at 2:17 a.m. A couple's massage booked under my name for Sunday morning. Breakfast for 3 delivered at 11:30 a.m. Sunday. "You got a couple's massage?" Elliot's voice was deadly quiet. I don't remember that. "With Mason or Jake?" "I don't remember." "The massage therapist remembers. I called the spa this morning. She said you and a dark-haired man came in together Sunday morning, both wearing resort bathrobes, both obviously hungover." I started crying. "It didn't mean anything. It was just physical. It wasn't emotional like what we have." "What we had," Elliot corrected. "Past tense." "Don't say that." He pulled out another paper. "This is a petition for annulment. I'm filing it tomorrow morning." "Elliot, no. The marriage is over, Cressida. The only question is whether it ends with annulment or divorce." "What's the difference?" "Annulment means the marriage never legally existed. It means you get nothing. No alimony, no property settlement, no claim to anything I owned before we got married." I stared at him in shock. "You want to leave me with nothing?" "I want to undo the biggest mistake of my life." "I'm the biggest mistake of your life." "Marrying you was, trusting you was, believing you when you promised to love and honor me was." He stood up and gathered his papers. "You'll be served with the petition tomorrow. Get a lawyer." "Elliot, wait." "We're done talking, Cressida. From now on, all communication goes through our attorneys." After he left, I sat in that Starbucks for 2 hours, crying into my cold coffee. Other customers kept staring at me, probably wondering what could make someone sob so publicly. I kept thinking about the security footage. What would it show? Me laughing and flirting with Mason and Jake at the bar. The 3 of us stumbling toward the elevator. Me leading them down the hallway to my room. And the couple's massage. God, I barely remembered that. I'd been so hungover Sunday morning, everything was a blur. But apparently, I'd been coherent enough to book spa treatments with one of my hookups. How was I going to explain any of this to my family? To my friends? To my coworkers? My phone buzzed with a text from my mother. Honey, can you call me? Elliot's mother is saying some very hurtful things, and I need to understand what's really going on. I turned off my phone and drove home to my empty apartment. In 12 hours, I would officially be served with annulment papers. My marriage was about to become a public legal battle, and I was going to lose. The process server found me at work the next morning. I was standing at the coffee station in our open plan office, trying to pretend everything was normal, when a young woman in a business suit approached me. Cressida Vale? Yes? You've been served. She handed me a thick envelope and walked away, leaving me standing there with 25 co-workers staring at me. My boss, Jennifer Martinez, hurried over. Cressida, is everything okay? I clutched the envelope against my chest, my face burning with embarrassment. It's just legal paperwork, nothing important. But Jennifer's expression told me she didn't buy it. Why don't you take this to your desk? I stumbled back to my cubicle, my hand shaking as I opened the envelope. The petition for annulment was 15 pages long, and it laid out everything in brutal detail. Petitioner alleges that respondent obtained his consent to marriage through fraud and material misrepresentation by concealing sexual relations with multiple partners occurring immediately prior to the wedding ceremony. Respondent engaged in a pattern of deception, including but not limited to payment of hush money to witnesses, deletion of photographic evidence, and active concealment of material facts. The marriage was entered into under fraudulent pretenses and should be declared null and void ab initio. There were exhibits attached, hotel records, witness statements, even screenshots of text messages. Somehow, Elliot's lawyer had gotten copies of the group chat from our Bachelorette party. I scrolled through the messages with growing horror. There was my own voice, recovered from deleted texts. What happens at Paradise Cove stays at Paradise Cove, ladies. Delete everything after this weekend. You can never know about my last hurrah. And another. Mason and Jake were amazing. I feel terrible, but also kind of incredible. This is my last weekend of freedom and I'm taking full advantage. How had they recovered deleted messages? I'd made sure everyone deleted the group chat. My desk phone rang. It was my mother. Cressida, what is going on? I just got a call from a lawyer asking me questions about your wedding expenses. Mom, I can't talk about this at work. Well, when can you talk about it? Because Elliot's parents are saying some very serious things, and I need to know if they're true. I looked around the office. Several co-workers were pretending to work while obviously listening to my conversation. I'll call you back tonight. Cressida Marie Vale, you tell me right now. Did you cheat on Elliot before your wedding? The question was loud enough that I saw heads turn in my direction. Mum, please. Because if you did, then his parents have every right to be upset about the money they spent. I hung up and buried my face in my hands. This was a nightmare. An hour later, my sister Tara showed up at my office. The receptionist called to tell me I had a visitor, and when I got to the lobby, Tara was pacing back and forth like a caged animal. We need to talk now. I'm at work. I don't care. This can't wait. We went to a coffee shop across the street. Tara ordered a double espresso and stared at me with barely controlled fury. I just got off the phone with Dad. Elliot's lawyer called him this morning asking about the wedding expenses. What wedding expenses? The ones Dad paid for, Cressida. The flowers, the photographer, the band. $12,000 that he took out of his retirement fund because he wanted to give his daughter a beautiful wedding. I felt sick. They can't make Dad pay anything back. They can if they prove the marriage was fraudulent. And from what I'm hearing, they have a pretty strong case. Tara leaned across the table. Tell me the truth, all of it, right now. So I did. I told her about Mason and Jake. about the 4 hours in my hotel room, about the couple's massage, about paying everyone to keep quiet. When I finished, Tara looked like she wanted to hit me. "You stupid, selfish bitch." "Tara, do you have any idea what you've done? Not just to Elliot, but to our entire family. Dad is 61 years old. He can't afford to lose $12,000. It won't come to that. It already has come to that. Elliot's lawyer is demanding full reimbursement for all wedding expenses. $38,000 from his family, $12,000 from ours." I started crying. I never meant for any of this to happen. But you did mean to sleep with 2 guys 3 days before your wedding. You did mean to lie about it. You did mean to cover it up. I made a mistake. Stop calling it a mistake. A mistake is forgetting to set your alarm clock. This was a series of deliberate choices that you made because you're selfish and immature, and you wanted to have your cake and eat it too. That afternoon, I tried to focus on work, but it was impossible. Every time someone walked past my desk, I wondered if they'd heard about the annulment. Every time my phone rang, I wondered if it was another lawyer or family member or friend demanding explanations. Around 3 o'clock, my coworker, Sarah Chen, not to be confused with Sarah from the Bachelorette party, stopped by my cubicle. "Hey, are you okay? You seem really stressed today." "I'm fine, just dealing with some personal stuff." "Is it related to the legal papers you got this morning?" I looked up at her sharply. "Why do you ask?" "Because my cousin works for David Chen's law firm, and she mentioned they're working on a really messy annulment case involving a bride who cheated at her bachelorette party." My blood turned to ice. "Your cousin told you about a client's case?" "She didn't mention names or anything, but when I saw you get served this morning, I put 2 and 2 together." I stared at her in horror. If Sarah Chen knew, how many other people knew? How many people were talking about my case at law firms and coffee shops and dinner tables across the city? "Sarah, please don't worry, I'm not going to gossip about it, but Cressida, if it's true, you might want to think about looking for another job." "What do you mean?" "Jennifer's been asking questions about your sick days this week, about the process server, about whether your personal problems are affecting your work performance." I felt like I was drowning. She can't fire me for getting divorced. She can fire you for anything she wants as long as it's not discriminatory. And having your personal drama play out at the office is definitely grounds for termination. That evening, I drove to my parents' house for what I knew would be the most difficult conversation of my life. Mum and Dad were waiting for me in their living room, both looking older than I'd ever seen them. "Sit down, honey," Mum said gently. Dad didn't waste time with pleasantries. "Is it true?" "Dad, is it true that you slept with other men before your wedding?" I nodded, unable to speak. Mum started crying. "Oh, Cressida, how could you?" "I don't know, I was scared and drunk and stupid, and I made the worst decision of my life." "You made multiple decisions," Dad said coldly. "You decided to cheat. You decided to lie. You decided to let us spend thousands of dollars on a wedding that was based on fraud." "It wasn't fraud. I love Elliot. You have a funny way of showing it." We sat in silence for several minutes. Finally, Mom spoke up. "What happens now?" "Elliot wants an annulment. He wants to pretend the marriage never happened." "And the money we spent on the wedding?" I couldn't meet their eyes. "His lawyer is demanding reimbursement." Dad stood up abruptly. $12,000, gone, because our daughter couldn't keep her legs closed for 3 days. "Graham," Mom gasped. "No, Helen, I'm not going to sugarcoat this. Our daughter destroyed her marriage and humiliated our family, and now we're going to lose our retirement savings because of it." I was sobbing now. "I'll pay you back. I'll get a loan or—" "With what? You make $35,000 a year. It would take you years to pay back that kind of money." Dad walked to the window and stared out at their small backyard. "I worked overtime for 6 months to save up for your wedding. 6 months of 12-hour days because I wanted to give you something beautiful." "I know, Daddy. I'm so sorry." "Sorry doesn't pay the bills, Cressida." He turned to face me, and I saw something in his eyes I'd never seen before. disappointment so deep it looked like hatred. "I think you should go. Dad, please, go. Your mother and I need to figure out how we're going to afford this mess you've created." I drove home through tears, barely able to see the road. At every red light, I checked my phone, hoping for some message of support from someone, anyone. Instead, I found a text from Mason. "Saw the news about your annulment online. Tough break. Let me know if you need someone to talk to. Okay." My marriage was so over that my affair partner had read about it on the internet. I was completely, utterly alone. The annulment hearing was scheduled for a Thursday morning in late October, exactly 3 months after what should have been my happily ever after. I sat in the courthouse hallway with my lawyer, Margaret Peterson, watching Elliot and his attorney review their exhibits one final time. "Are you sure you want to go through with this?" Peterson asked me for the 100th time. "We could still try to negotiate a settlement." "With what money?" I'd already spent my savings on legal fees, and my parents had made it clear they weren't helping me financially. "You could agree to the annulment in exchange for them dropping the reimbursement claims." I looked across the hallway at Elliot. He was wearing the navy suit he'd worn to our rehearsal dinner, and he looked calm and composed. Next to him sat his parents, my parents, and several other family members who would be testifying. "No," I said finally. "If I'm going down fighting." It was a decision I would regret for the rest of my life. Judge Patricia Morrison was a stern-faced woman in her 60s who had clearly seen every kind of marital disaster imaginable. She reviewed the case file while we all sat in uncomfortable silence. "This is a petition for annulment based on fraud," she said finally. "Mr. Chen, present your case." Elliot's lawyer stood up and walked to the podium. "Your Honor, the evidence will show that the respondent obtained the petitioner's consent to marriage through deliberate fraud and material misrepresentation." He started with the hotel records. Room service charges for 3 people. Keycard entries showing multiple people accessing my room throughout the night. Spa appointments booked for couples treatments. Then came the witness statements. Sarah from my Bachelorette party testified that I had bragged about sleeping with Mason and Jake. Chloe testified that I had paid her $500 to keep quiet about what happened. Even the massage therapist from the resort testified via video conference, describing how I had arrived at the spa with a male companion on Sunday morning. The respondent didn't just commit adultery, Chen argued. She orchestrated a deliberate cover-up designed to conceal her actions from the petitioner. She paid witnesses to remain silent, deleted photographic evidence, and actively misrepresented the nature of her Bachelorette party activities. Then came the recovered text messages. Somehow, they had gotten a forensic expert to retrieve the deleted group chat from multiple phones. My own words were projected on a screen for everyone to see. "This is my last weekend of freedom and I'm going wild. What E doesn't know won't hurt him. Promise me you'll all take this to your graves." The most damaging message was one I'd sent to Chloe the morning after. "I can't believe I did that, but I'm not sorry. They were both amazing and I needed to get it out of my system before I become a boring married lady. Just promise me Elliot never finds out." Judge Morrison read each message aloud in a flat, disapproving tone. I wanted to disappear into the floor. When it was Peterson's turn to present my defense, she did her best to argue that my actions, while morally wrong, didn't constitute legal fraud. "Your Honor, adultery before marriage is not the same as fraud in the inducement. My client made a terrible mistake, but she genuinely loved her husband and entered into the marriage in good faith." "Did she enter into the marriage in good faith?" Judge Morrison asked. "Or did she enter into it while actively concealing information that would have been material to her husband's decision to marry her?" Peterson struggled to answer that question. "How do you argue good faith when your client paid people to cover up her infidelity?" The judge called a brief recess, and I followed Peterson into the hallway. "How bad is it?" I asked my lawyer. "Bad. The texts prove intent to deceive. The judge will likely annul the marriage, and order reimbursement for wedding costs. Court resumed. Judge Morrison ruled coldly. The respondent concealed sexual relations with multiple partners before the wedding and actively hid this from the petitioner. The marriage is null and void ab initio, as if it never existed. 3 months erased. Then, petitioner and family entitled to $50,000 restitution for wedding expenses incurred in reliance on misrepresentations, payable in installments, $500 monthly. 8 years of debt at 31. Afterward, I found Elliot's letter in his shirt pocket. I loved the woman I thought you were. She never existed. I cried until empty. Days later, my job fired me over the publicity. 6 months on, waitressing, studio apartment, monthly payments to Elliot's family. He'd moved airports, dating someone honest and loyal. I was happy for him. He deserved real love. I just wished I'd been capable of giving it.